Today's video is on the Italian B4 landmine. This landmine was developed in 1935 and was, if I remember correctly, due to the Ethiopian War. Italy developed it for that and used it during the Second World War. And they used that in North Africa. Apparently it was used in the Balkans also. When the Italians left the war, the Germans continued using these mines, so they used them throughout the war. It's a anti-personnel mine, very simple pull release, so tripwires. And it is a simple mine. Apparently it worked well. It's just that building it took a lot of parts. So with Italy being in the situation that it was in during the Second World War, there weren't that many of them made by the Italians to start off with. There's two versions from what I've seen with this. This one here is a simplified version from the looks of it, and there's another version that has an extension here with a spring and a lever arm. That makes it a tension release mine also, which means if anyone cuts the tripwire that's connected to that arm, it will fire the mine also. It's pretty self-explanatory how this works. There's a set of string that you would tie them off to here, through the hole here, and then you can put them on angles. So you'd be able to use 3 of them with that. And the one that connects to the back on the other version of it, as I said, it holds back a spring, and when you cut the wire, the spring will push onto here, which is acting like this being pulled forward. So I'll explain, I guess, the rest of it, how it works. This mine is basically all self-contained. The only thing that's apparently missing when they would get them was the blasting cap. It was not installed. Everything else was installed. So right here you have 6 spikes on the back. That's to install onto trees or logs or anything else that's soft enough to jam the spikes into. Holds it in place. Then you have, as you can see here, hooks and a couple of rings along with the rope that's there. That's to help tie to whatever you just connected it to. The back here is a filling port, and that's where they would fill the powdered TNT that went into this mine. You could see the brass tube. It connects the whole thing right through to the bottom. So right through the bottom it connects, and it has a T on it that goes here. This basically is made of 2 pieces, so there are 2 cylinders inside this mine. So this is the outer cylinder. There's another one like it inside. Between the 2 cylinders is a bunch of metal chunks that's used as shrapnel. I'll show you them later. And inside that is your brass tube here. So your brass tube in the bottom here, as your detonator would go into that hole that's down there. It's a standard, they say number 8 blasting cap, so whatever the standard blasting cap that they used for the number that matches number 8s. And in here, which a blasting cap would go into, is one of the cylindrical TNT charges, 100 gram charges. That would be cut in half and put up into there. Apparently they came with them already installed, but that was they called the booster charge for it. So when it fires, your cap explodes, sets off the booster charge, which sets off the main charge in the mine. So you have a 1/4 pound of main charge along with your booster, which should be about 50 grams. This here is where the percussion cap sits. So it actually will act as a good safety. If it's not completely pushed in, it will not fire. So all made out of brass. The outside is all sheet metal. So that's the 2 main components of this thing. As I was saying, everything that's required with it is actually with the mine here. So this here is also doubles as a safety. So you would put your safety like that. And inside here, which is probably the more interesting part of this mine, is all 4 spools of string for actually using as tripwire. And if I could do this without dropping everything, I could get to a flashlight, and you can see underneath that spool there's a piece of sheet metal that the spool sits on. Underneath that you can see the chunks of steel that are inside the mine. I can't take this mine apart because it's all been welded together, but basically the whole under here is full of those pieces of metal. And you could hear them moving around when I move the mine. So I'll take this off and put it back in. So that rattling, apart from this, that rattling you hear is from the metal pieces going around. Lastly, the fuse on it, or the firing device on it, is a very basic one. Once again, I'll show you how it works, but basically just a rough piece of brass with a firing pin and a spring. So if we push this out, release a spring on it, we can unscrew this, pull this whole thing out, and show you how this basically goes in, so it fits through, and then here pushes in and it locks it in place. That's all that holds your mine. With 1 kilogram or more of force, you're able to pull, and then this is able to release and impact that percussion cap that I mentioned. And that's basically how it works. I could set it up and just pull it with a string so that we could see exactly how much force it takes, but that's the basics of this landmine. All right, so as I was saying, this is basically the standard setup on it. So if you had a string going through, you could set it up straight through like that, or you could put it on angles. Obviously with the angles, it takes a little bit more force to pull, but we go like this, then we pull on it, and that would set off the mine. Anyways, I hope you found this interesting. I find it an interesting mine just because you don't see them. I wanted it part of my collection for that. And apart from that, it is a very basic mine. It isn't anything like the S mine, which bounces, that has a bounding effect on it. This really is just you connect it to an object and wait for someone to trip over it. I don't know how effective it was, but it seems to have done the job wherever it was placed. If you have any questions, comments about this mine, please feel free to leave them in the comments. As I said, I will put up a picture or two of what it looks like inside in a cutaway form, basically from the US manuals on this thing. And thanks for having watched this.